This is Decoding Learning Differences with Kimberlyn Lavelle. This video is choosing the best science and social studies curricula for you and your child. This will also encompass other curricula that you might be interested in for whatever other subjects you might be looking at. Step 1 is over on that side where it says curriculum. We are not doing math or language arts now. We are doing science or social studies or whatever other subject you are considering. So if you need to find a science and a social studies curriculum, you're going to want two separate pages, one for science, one for social studies, because you might have different considerations for each of those. Now, for this one, the Common Core standards exist. They do exist for science and social studies. There's some more variation by state, so you might want to just handwrite in there, I'm following the state standards, or something else. Incorporating a special interest. Maybe your child is super interested in marine biology, so your science this year is just going to be marine biology, no matter what their age is. That's just what you're going to do. And you're not going to follow a particular second grade science curriculum, if that's the age of your child who is interested in marine biology, whatever it is, okay? So this one might have a little bit more variation in this section. You might be very interested in your science curriculum having a religious base. Then you definitely want to check that box. Social studies, very similar. There are state standards for those. You might want to be making sure you're following those so your child learns all the things that they would learn if they were in a public school for their age and grade. Or you might not care at all what it is. And you are going to have your second grader, your fourth grader, and your sixth grader all learning about Native American history this year. So that's just going to be your focus for everyone, whatever it is. Okay, so just think through, what do you want to make sure is included? Write it in any of the white space there, cross off those check marks if it just does not apply for this for you. And step 3, what modalities will work best for your child? Does your child need short lessons? Now maybe this is different than for the other subjects. Maybe language arts, your child can handle longer lessons because they're super engaged in the stories. Or maybe, writing, they need super short lessons. Maybe math, they can go for hours doing math because they just love it. But now for social studies, needs to be short. But science can be super long. So think through that. What is your child's attention span ability for that particular subject? How short do you need those lessons to be? How much white space or other visual considerations do you need for your child? Do they need a lot of diagrams showing them how things are done in a scientific thing, like marine biology? Do they need the diagram of the entire animal and each of the pieces? Probably. Most of us would. But do they need that? Do they need lots of maps for their history? Probably. Most of us would. Does your curriculum provide that? Or do you have that available? And again, this is for whatever you're using as a curriculum. It doesn't have to be a set curriculum that you're purchasing as a science curriculum. If you're just getting various books from Amazon that are about science topics, you might still want to think through what your child needs for each of these. How much spiral review? If you wanted to make sure they really understood that history, you might want to go back and kind of question them on it. And you're not going to see as much spiral review in most science or social studies curriculum choices, but you might want to think through it, how you can incorporate it or look for it and see if it does include it. Do they need any kind of interactive practice online? Maybe finding different countries online. Do they need to be able to virtually dissect a frog online? Whatever it is, think about, do they need any kind of science or social studies online, or is it going to be purely books and field trips and things like that? Is your child a primarily tactile, kinesthetic, visual, or auditory learner? And this might even vary based on science versus social studies versus language arts versus math. it can vary. A child might be more tactile for math, more kinesthetic for language arts. Probably not too much different. You know, they might go back and forth between those if they have like a kind of a strength in one of those. It's unlikely that they would be like visual then for science and auditory for social studies. That's less likely. But you might want to think about how you can be incorporating all of those for your child, because no matter who your child is, unless they are blind or deaf and can't access things visually or auditorily, and truly completely blind, because I've had blind students who were visual learners, but they were legally blind, but they could actually they did still have some sight. So that we had to get creative in how to like make something they could actually see. So really think through, how can you incorporate all of these into your child's lessons? A big one that I would suggest is like audiobooks to support whatever you're learning, whether it's science or social studies or anything else. Audiobooks are great to like just reinforce it. It might just be a book it might be a nonfiction book giving information on something, or it might be a fiction book that has that science or social studies topic in the story. So think through how you're going to do that for your child. Kinesthetic, how are you going to act out old games that were played in history? Are you going to act out the different events of history? What science things can you act out? What science experiments can you be doing? So be really thinking through how you can be incorporating all of these modalities into your child's science, social studies, or whatever other curriculum you're considering right now. Step 4, what do you need to be able to teach your child or assist in their learning? So again, for science, do you absolutely love science and you want to be super creative and do a bunch of Pinterest science experiments and activities and field trips, and you're so excited? But social studies, you got no idea. You need it to be grab and go, zero prep. Or maybe it's the reverse. Maybe social studies, history stuff is your jam. You know all about it. You've got tons of books already. You don't really want a set curriculum. You want to like just follow your child's interest in this area. That might be where you're being more creative for it. I would expect that for each of these worksheets that you're filling out, that you don't have them look exactly the same. That's why I'm going through them in different videos to really consider different things for each subject. But they could look exactly the same for every single one if that's just very strongly you and your child's personality. So again, for science, do you need any instruction done online, any videos for the history? And does it need to be part of the curriculum? Or are you okay to make sure that you just add that in yourself through History Channel or science documentaries or whatever? Or do you need it to be very set? Like there's a video that they watch and then they do this worksheet and that's their science lesson. And then we'll try and do the experiment on the weekend. Like, what do you need in order for your child to be able to access some science and social studies?